Oh, there you are. Well, hello. It is 7 o'clock on Monday. I'm here as I should be. Well, whatever. Maybe not. But I'm here anyway. And soon, hopefully, you are as well. Welcome to the show if you are here. This week, geez, man, I feel like there's a lot to talk about. I had a hard time kind of placing the cue of what I was going to talk about as far as timing of when I'm going to release the videos and such, because there's a lot of sort of pertinent stuff in the immediate, if you will. So it's kind of crazy. What's up there, Joe? I'm not late. You're late. So it's kind of nutty. I'm not going to talk so much about politics, which is weird, but a lot of stuff. I mean, one is kind of politics related, I guess. Yeah, it is politics related. I'm full of shit, but it's mostly just stuff that's going on. A lot of crazy stuff going on. So a lot of things to talk about. We're going to talk about the Joe Rogan live special on Netflix. I just watched it. It was I got a mixed review on it. We'll talk about it. Also, the stock market crash today. Is it a real crash? What is it? Is it a long-term thing? Is this the start of a very bad short cycle on the stock market, or is this the beginning of something? I don't know. We'll talk about it. Also, the Olympic boxer trans fiasco, whatever you want to call that now. It's a whole mixed bag of shit going on with that. So, we're going to kind of talk about that and see where we land on that, because it doesn't seem like it just seems like they're just throwing a whole bunch of bullshit information out on it, and who knows what to believe. Also, we'll talk about the UK riots, what those are like, what's starting those, what that's all about, if it's propaganda, if it's, if they're just trying to, you'll know what I mean. When we get into it, you'll see the wording, the language behind that is really, it's what they always do. Let's put it that way. Also, we're going to talk about Project 2025, the propaganda of that, the truth of it, kind of the mixed bag of that and what it means. Also, last but not least, we'll talk about Google. Well, this one's probably going to get me in trouble, but we'll see if I actually release a video about it. But we're going to talk about it on the podcast. They just lost a big antitrust suit, which means that they're kind of being called out for their search dominance. So we'll talk about that. We'll read an article about that and see where we land on that. So as always, if you are watching the podcast and you like it and you're not yet a subscriber, do hit the subscribe. Doesn't cost you anything to do it, but it does help small channels like this. Also, if you like the content, make sure to hit the like and share and all that kind of stuff. I feel like I got to ask all the time, because realistically, I'm guilty of it too. You just watch a video, you like the video, but you forget to hit the old thumbs up, which doesn't help. It does help that you watch the video, but it doesn't really help if you're not hitting the like, because then the algorithm doesn't really know whether that video is something that's popular or people like it or not. So if you do like the videos, do that to help the channel. And if you do miss any part of the podcast and you want to catch the videos or the segments that we talk about, you can catch them during the week. I don't necessarily put them all out, but I usually do 6. And if I do put them all out, they're between Tuesday and Sunday. But look for them at 5 o'clock between Tuesday and Sunday. Sometimes I omit them depending on what I think the relevance is going to be for future video watch, or also for, the overlords suppressing it. Because you'll see my channel. If you go check the channel, you'll see a lot of the videos I put on there get very, very little views. And a lot of the time, that's either because of the relevance of it long term, or because it's been suppressed in some way. And there's no point otherwise to do that. So, yeah. All right. Well, without further ado, let's get into the first thing, because I'm kind of interested to talk about this. So let me cue this up here. Boom, boom, boom. Oops. Let's close that up. Okay. Hold on. Here we go. All right. So Joe Rogan did a live stream comedy special on Netflix this weekend on Saturday night. It was it's got a mixed bag for reviews and such. If you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend, if you're a fan of Joe Rogan, to go and check it out. It's strange. We'll put it that way. Like it's not exactly, for me, it wasn't exactly a comedy routine, more so kind of like a fun rant on things. It didn't seem like it was a lot of wasn't as many laughs as I would normally have with a Joe Rogan special, but it was a lot of real relevant stuff. It was almost like watching Dave Chappelle in a way, because you get that entertainment factor, but you're not really laughing. Not a lot of laugh out loud kind of joke telling. But I'm going to read this article. This is the New York Times, so it's going to be garbage, but let's see what they have to say. In his stand-up special, Joe Rogan plays dumb. On Saturday night, Joe Rogan started glitching. Minutes into his live comedy special, Burn the Boats, the movements of his mouth did not match what he was saying. Audio went in and out. Certain phrases repeated, Max Headroom style. If you don't know what Max Headroom is, he was a it was a show or based off of a commercial or something back in the 80s. It was like this weird sort of AI robot or AI whatever generated thing on whatever. It was, you look it up. Fuck it. Anyways, someone as conspiracy minded as Rogan might wonder, was this payback for his criticism of vaccines and lockdowns? Is this mainstream media behind this? Aliens? More likely just boring old technical difficulties. Live streaming remains a work in progress for Netflix. Following stand-up hours by Chris Rock and Cat Williams, Rogan became the third comic to try this experiment, putting out his first special in 6 years. You could see the logic of getting him to do it during election season, but oddly, he didn't address the latest developments in the presidential campaign. Yeah, he stayed away from the presidential shit. I mean, it's not even funny to talk about that. Everybody's talking about it, so... Oh, awesome. Well, that's my phone being a douche. Yeah, so it's good that he avoided that. Honestly, I think it would have been just boring for him to talk about it. But anyways, of course, they're going to mention that. Okay, so Rogan made more news last week on his podcast where he suggested that the assassination attempt on Donald J. Trump has been memory hold and that Kamala Harris could win. He also suggested that the reason President Biden sometimes seems more coherent is that he uses a body double. He talks a lot of shit on the podcast. Doesn't mean he 100% believes. He just says some shit. So anyways, part of the reason that Rogan has built the most popular podcast in the world is that he promises to explore ideas that he says the mainstream media ignores or downplays. Was the moon landing faked, or aliens landing in Roswell the reason we invented fiber optics? Does wearing a mask make you seem less of a man? Joe's on it. And yet, there is one question you don't hear investigated on this podcast, one relevant to its success, but taboo in certain precincts of the comedy world. Is Joe Rogan good at stand-up comedy? The answer to that is yes, he is. So shut the fuck up. That can be a dangerous one for some critics to touch on because Rogan has become a powerful gatekeeper, the owner of a club in Austin, Texas, and a host who drives viewers to specials and movies. Rogan tends to be talked about as a political or sports figure, a guru for bros, a symptom of a culture rampant with conspiracy, transphobia, and misinformation. But his current notoriety is all built on decades-long career of stand-up, which provides a contrast with his other media job. Okay, this is a little more fluffy fluff, but so here we go. This says his jokes rely on the most well-worn of stand-up subjects: pat downs at the airport, the comedy of old people having sex, describing a drug trip man. When it comes to sex, men, you have heard, are different than women. The variation with Rogan is an additional sentence mocking the straw man of those who think the differences are purely cultural. His joke constructions are also familiar. The things you think you don't know, or think but don't do. Sorry, the words you can't say. He leans into stereotypes and have cracked up drunken club crowds for generations. When he discovers from a genetic test that he has some African ancestry, you know a joke about penis size is on its way. This article is written very fluffy. It's like an opinion piece, obviously, of New York Times. But you know, he's got a couple things to say that I kind of agree with a little bit there. In a possible effort to exploit the live aspect of the show, he tries crowd work, asking an audience member to speak up when they yell out something after he worries aloud about the influence of China. Then when they shout out cobalt mine, he appears oddly irritated. Congratulations, he sneers, you know a thing. He's just fucking around with the crowd, so to pick that out is kind of weird. It was kind of a strange sort of crowd work anyway. I didn't think he needed to put it in there, but it was live, and that's what I think this dude's not realizing. It's live, so he's got written material, but he's also kind of riffing off of whatever's going on at the time, and it's not like they get to view it and then go, oh, we're going to release this or we're going to edit this out. Contempt for the crowd is a theme. He pokes fun at the idea that he has any responsibility for the information he hosts on his podcast. If you're getting your vaccine info from me, he asks, is it really my fault? Which is a perfectly relevant position to take. You're listening to a podcast where a guy's riffing for 3 hours with various different people and various different topics all the time. He doesn't pretend to be an expert in anything. He's just a curious guy talking about shit that people don't want to talk about necessarily. So, yeah, it's sort of stupid that he's bringing that up. I'm not going to read any more of this. It's kind of like, it just keeps kind of slamming it a little bit, saying it's not really all that funny, and that whatever. That he talks about different things like Elon Musk and things like that. You just have to watch. You're going to have to watch this special to see what you think about it. My personal view on it is it's not his funniest. Obviously, for one, it's live, so it's gonna be tough to be that way. And a lot of it is just culturally relevant stuff he's talking about. Some of it's older related stuff, some of it's new, kind of topical stuff that relates to now, and some of it's a little bit in the past. But it's not exactly the funniest thing, but it's entertaining. It's like I said, it's like watching Dave Chappelle. If you like Joe Rogan, you're going to like this. It's probably not going to be your favorite of any of his stand-ups. But again, this was kind of an experiment. I think it went all right. I think it could have gone better, but media pieces like this are going to slam it because it's kind of, that's what they do with Joe Rogan, right? All right. What did you think of it, Joe? Or anybody else in the chat right now? We don't have very many people, but it wasn't his best work, but again, I wasn't expecting it to be spot on, kind of worked out shit. I always giggle. There was one thing, I can't remember what he said. There was one thing very specific that he said that that made me bust the gut. I can't remember it right now. Anyways, but I should have remembered. It would be funny. But yeah, check it out if you haven't already. I'm sure you probably have, Joe. But all right. Anyways, let's get on to the next thing here. Okay. Actually, let me cue this up a little better. I was reading through this a little bit earlier. All right. It was kind of funny. It wasn't, like I said, I've watched, what's he have, 2 other specials or 3 other specials or something? Every other one's been funnier. This one, he has moments that are hilarious. Like there was that one, I just can't remember right now. But otherwise, yeah, it's not something I would watch again, be like, I'm going to watch that again. I would watch other older ones of his where I found it a lot more funny, but you should still watch it anyway, just to get your own opinion on it. So we had a pretty bad market today. It's kind of been bad for the last little bit. It's been up and down quite a bit. Lots of dips. Today, man, it really dipped. And it's getting a lot of investors afraid for long term, especially when you start to see like Japanese markets dropping and such. I'm going to read this article here. This is the Washington Post. So, take it with a grain of salt. At least with the Washington Post, for an article like this, they're not exactly going to throw in a lot of rhetoric and narrative. They're just going to kind of tell you a little bit more of the information. So let's see what they have to say. So the Dow sinks more than 1,000 points in global market sell-off. Global markets slid Monday as fears of a slowing U.S. economy sparked investor angst, resulting in some of the most intense volatility Wall Street has seen in years. Investors were rattled with a trickle of disappointing economic data, including last week's jobs report, which saw the U.S. unemployment rate rise to 4.3%. The Dow Jones Industrial Average shed nearly 1,034 points, or 2.6%, to close at 38,703. The broader S&P 500 erased 3%, while the tech-savvy NASDAQ lost 3.4%, as wariness around AI led investors to turn away from big names such as NVIDIA and Microsoft. Okay, so here's some of the dip showing. So Wall Street turbulence followed unease in overseas trading that sent Japan's benchmark Nikkei 225 index to its biggest single-day drop on record. Cryptocurrencies also plunged, with Bitcoin moving nearly 11% lower. Analysts said the sell-off is a reaction to worrisome economic data last week that moved the Nasdaq into correction territory on Friday after nearly a year of gains. Adding to the volatility is a spate of bad financial results from the tech sector and currency gyrations abroad. Still, even with the recent losses, the three major U.S. indexes remain positive for the year. So you can see they're still up, over the year, but not where they were, obviously. But if they continue to drop, that's a problem. We got a threefold fear: manufacturing data that was poor, labor market data that was weaker than expected, and a Fed that seemingly won't be here to help us until September, which feels like an eternity away, said Liz Young-Thomas, head of investment strategy at SoFi. What she's talking about there, as far as the Fed not being there, is is Congress being out of session until September, I think it's September 9th or something like that. Pathetic, but whatever. They got to take summer off. I guess they're like teachers. Monday's decline started in Asia, where rising interest rates also have spooked investors. Nikkei plummeted 12.4%, or more than 4,451 points, to 31,458. The index has slid by more than 20% since last month, after reaching all-time highs over 42,000 in July. We will match the market trends with a sense of urgency and take all possible measures to manage the economy and finances, Japan's chief cabinet secretary said during his regular news conference Monday. Grim numbers were reported across the region. South Korea's Kospi index dropped by 8.77%, Taiwan's index 8.35%, Hong Kong's Seng index was down 1.46%, and China's Shanghai Composite Stock Market Index by 1.54%. And Australia's S&P ASX 200 slid by 3.7%. So you can see it's like a global market drop. But we live in a global market at this point right now. So if the U.S. economy starts to tank, other economies are going to kind of tank, because obviously they're holding a ton of U.S. dollars. And so their economies are directly connected with the U.S. economy, right? So we are a global market at this point, like it or not. European markets followed suit. London's FTSE 100 dropped more than 2%, hitting its lowest in more than 3 months, and shares of European tech and semiconductor stocks also plunged. The volatility was rooted in several data reports that appeared to show weakness in the U.S. economy. On Friday, the Labor Department reported the nation's unemployment rate had leaped to 4.3%, which is funny because it says it leaped to that, but I suspect that those numbers are they're always messed with, so you can't really trust those numbers 100%, kind of until like the ships come back to harbor, right, where they have to say something. And I think at this point that's kind of what's happening, right, where they were before, during the heart of the presidency, they were kind of just saying, well, no, we're okay. And now they've kind of got to be honest about what the real unemployment numbers are. With employers adding 114,000 jobs in July, weaker than expected showing. On Thursday, another report showed more Americans filing initial unemployment claims, a widely followed proxy for layoffs, and a gauge of the manufacturing sector also raised concerns. Okay, so anyways, yeah. I don't know if we're actually in the start of a recession, but this is kind of how they start, right? This could be a problem, but you can kind of see. I mean, we have to wait till tomorrow and Wednesday and see what happens as far as the market. If we have a little bit of a correction up. Sometimes I think some of this is artificially bolstered, right? So the fat cats that are controlling the market with a lot of manipulation will do this to drive the prices down, so they can have a big buying, whatever, big buying fest at a low, and then drive up the price over a couple of days, have a sell off, and then just keep that yo-yo going. So I guess we'll have to see. Trump's new no, I didn't actually see Trump's new Cybertruck. He's got a Cybertruck. That's kind of funny. Is it all armored up? It's weird. Crypto plunged like that. It usually goes the other way than the markets. Yeah, no. See, we've talked about this in other podcasts, and that's what I've said. It should go the other way, but it doesn't. So it just shows that crypto, this idea that it's not, it's not tied to the market. It's just bullshit. It's completely tied to the market now. As they've been sort of legitimizing Bitcoin with ETFs and things like that, where companies are actually buying it up like crazy, it is directly tied to the market now. So you have no more of this, the whole idea of what it was supposed to be at first, right? So that's alarming. So because it's going to take away that idea that you have a hedge against the market. I mean, there's always been the hedge with gold and real assets, but I don't know if you get the whole market collapsing, it seems like gold will go with it a little bit too, right? So, but I don't know. It has a pic of him after he got shot on the driver's side door. That's funny. That's pretty funny. I'm going to have to check that out. If I knew about that, I probably would have talked about it, but I admittedly had no idea about the Trump Cybertruck. All right. Let's get on to the next one here. This one kind of bugs me, but we're going to talk about it. We'll see. It probably just get throttled down anyway. So obviously, you know this by now. If you're watching this, you know about this whole transgendered fighter, boxer in the Olympics, quote unquote, transgendered. As it turns out now, they're trying to say that this is not a transgendered fighter. I don't know what to think about this. It's like throwing a bunch of shit at the wall, and you just don't know if it's what's true and what's not. This is CBC News. If you're aware of CBC, they're the Canadian Broadcast Corporation. So I'm from Canada. And this is kind of our dumpster fire of a news organization up here. Let's see what they have to say about this. So they say misinformation persists online after super brief Olympic boxing bout. The online reaction was swift, relentless, and ill-informed. Within hours of her victory on Thursday, at least they're using the correct pronouns for themselves, over Italy's Angela Carini, unfounded claims that Algerian Olympic boxer Emain Khalif is actually a man or biological male swirled online, amplified by the likes of Elon Musk, J.K. Rowling, Logan Paul, and Caitlyn Jenner. It all started when the fight stopped, after just 46 seconds with a punch to Carini's nose. The extremely brief bout, plus Carini's refusal to shake hands with her fellow welterweight afterward, fueled speculation they had not been fairly matched. It was the purest form of evil, wrote Logan Paul, a noted and notorious influencer, perhaps best known for tasting dead animals, and being temporarily suspended by YouTube after posting video in a forest in Japan near what seemed to be a dead body. On X, who seemed to think the Olympics had just showcased a man beating up a woman. Paul has since deleted the post. So here's what he had to say anyway. It says, this is the purest form of evil unfolding right before your eyes. A man was allowed to beat up a woman on a global stage, crushing her life's dream while fighting for her deceased father. This delusion must end. Rowling called Khalif a male who was enjoying the distress of a woman he just punched in the head. Carini later apologized for snubbing Khalif, saying she was angry because her Olympics had just gone up in smoke. She said the resulting controversy has made her sad. I don't have anything against Khalif. Actually, if I were to meet her again, I would embrace her, she said. Similar allegations have been leveled at another boxer, Taiwan's Lin Yuting. Neither Khalif nor Lin identify as transgender or as having been born with a male body. So they don't identify. I love how these words you're using. Okay. It's very easy to check. There's like a very simple place that you just look to see gender. But I don't know. We used to do that. We still do it with fucking animals, but all right. According to a fact check from GLAAD, there is no indication Khalif has ever identified as transgender or intersex. Okay. What's this have to do with anything? Just throwing shit against the wall, I guess. All right. I don't tell anyone I identify as a male either. I just assume they know. Nor is there any evidence to support the online speculation that Khalif has experienced differences in sex development, or DSD, a group of rare conditions that can cause women to have XY chromosomes and blood testosterone levels in the male range. The allegations against Khalif were frequently framed as a call to protect the integrity of women's sports and, by extension, the women themselves. But that's an inauthentic argument, according to Michelle Donnelly, an associate producer or professor of sport management and a gender issue researcher at Brock University. She sees it as an excuse to push a transphobic agenda. Why is it that women are championing this all the time? Shouldn't you be championing other women? I just don't understand. But all right. It's so obviously not about women's sport at all. It's about really forwarding a exclusionary, transphobic agenda, she said. If people were truly interested in fairness in women's sport, they would be advocating for more media coverage, for more resources invested in women's sport, more opportunities. That is such a horseshit comment right there. Let's unpack that horseshit. So advocating for more media coverage of something people don't care to watch, more resources invested in women's sport, more opportunities. People don't care to watch. You can't just force shit down people's throat and be like, hey, watch this because we want you to watch it. It's for equality. What the fuck are you talking about? People don't care about that shit. They'll act like they care about it and in rooms full of people and shit. But behind closed doors, they're not turning their TV on to say, oh, I'm going to watch some, subpar athletes. No offense to women. You want to watch the top. You want to watch the top tier of anything. If you're really a sports fan, women just aren't really sports fans. So women watching women in sports, it's not really happening that much. So you can say all you want about support and providing opportunities and doing more media coverage and stuff, but it's all tied to dollars and cents. If people are spending money, people want it, they will spend the money to get it. And that will drive the market for that thing. You can't just force it. We've talked about this on the podcast before about the WNBA and such. So that's such a horseshit comment, but okay, good on you, Michelle Donnelly, you idiot. Despite their lack of evidence, and yes, we're getting to the part about the Boxing Association, Khalif's critics are still talking about this and are likely to continue, says Timothy Caulfield, a law professor at the University of Alberta who studies misinformation. It has taken root within an echo chamber that feels very strongly about this, and it's going to become one of those situations where facts don't matter anymore, he said. Like I said, it's very easy to figure this out. What's between the legs? Okay. That appears to be true of Rowling, for example, who doubled down on her earlier remarks on Friday, posting on X, we saw a male punching a female. Caulfield says people like Rowling can spread misinformation easily because of their large audience. These are individuals with big audiences and very particular audiences, he said. Yeah, people just like common sense, I think. They want to hear opinions they want to hear, and we know when that happens, and research tells us this, misinformation is more likely to not only be believed, but to take off. Testosterone levels. Okay, so some of the supposed evidence against Khalif lacks context or nuance. Both she and Lynn failed gender eligibility testing under the International Boxing Association in March of 2023. Many have speculated this was due to high testosterone levels, even though the testing did not include testosterone. Okay, so tell us what it is then. Why did they fail? You're just going to say, oh, they failed. Whoa. And then not fill in the blanks with context. That's what they do with this kind of shit. They just keep throwing a bunch of shit against the wall. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody's saying, hey, look, we had them pull their pants down. We looked, we saw, and we thought, hey, this is probably a male. Or we didn't see that, and it's probably not a male. It's retarded. Okay, so the IBF said Khalif was proven to have XY chromosomes, which typically indicates an individual is male. However, certain conditions can allow a woman to present XY chromosomes. Some sports organizations limit the levels of testosterone allowed in athletes competing in women's categories, while others ban anyone who is assigned male sex at birth and is past puberty. At a news conference Friday, IOC spokesman Mark Adams called the debate over testosterone levels in women's sport a minefield. As with all minefields, we want a simple explanation, he said. Everyone wants a black and white explanation of how we can determine this. That explanation does not exist, neither in the scientific community nor anywhere else. What's really weird is we did this for years and years and years and years until the most recent history. We had zero problems with this, keeping women competing against women and men competing against men. I don't know where it all got conflated somehow, but we live in this topsy-turvy world now of, identity. So that's the problem. I read this article earlier and I thought, wow, I learned nothing. All they did was throw a bunch more shit against the wall and they're just hoping that you'll just accept it. So it seems to be still out there, up in the air as far as whether this boxer is a female or a male. Looks like a male. It failed tests previously. I don't know. Sometimes when it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's a duck. Oh, man. Okay. They failed Are You a Dude check. Yeah, exactly. It looks like a man. Reminds me of MS Swan from Mad TV. Look, He look like a man. Yeah. But seriously though, it's like all you have to do is it's very simple to check if it's a man or not. And if it's, I mean, I read other articles where it was talking about the father said that it has always identified as a female. Okay, you're not saying whether they are or aren't. It's they identified. I love these fucking words they use. It's wordplay. It's all wordplay. That's the whole confusion of it. That's the way you do it. You say, hey, I just identify as that. It's like, well, no, what are you? Well, I identify as a female. No, what are you in actuality? Well, I'm a female because I identify as one. These aren't answers. But that's the way we answer questions now. That's the way everyone answers questions now. You listen to Congress, you listen to people that are, when Fauci was under oath, that's the way he was answering questions. It was just like nothing but bullshit. There's no concrete answers, and nobody really presses for concrete answers. They just kind of they just take that shit and run with it. Anyways. Sorry, I'm getting an emergency alert on my phone over here. Kind of funny. What else we got here? What are you saying there? Howdy from Windhoek. Howdy. Glad you're up and awake and on the podcast. Good to see you. The women won't stop it. They fall right in with the call. The wish to force absurdity upon us. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's just, it's because it feels good to go with what you think is like the nice or correct or right thing to do. Nobody really wants, I shouldn't say nobody. People that do that, they never want to go against what they think is the grain. And the grain seems to be the loudest people. It's always the loudest people in the crowd that are the ones that get the most attention, right? Or the ones that you fear the most, kind of, because like in any situation, if you have somebody who's unhinged, you're like, oh shit, like don't mess with that person. They're unhinged. So like you don't want to egg them on. But then there are some people that will just say, screw it, let's go. Have at me, right? Which are the kind of people that I applaud, because they're the kind of people doing the work I don't want to do, right? So, but we should all just call this shit out for the nonsense that it is. And the fact that, like, for example, Logan Paul said that on X, and then he retracted it. Come on, man. I would have gained a little respect for you if you just stuck with your guns and said what it is, but then he just retracts it. Oh, okay, no, I was misinformed. No, you weren't. You were probably correct in the first place. Maybe don't say something too quick then before you aren't, or like before you know anything. You're just hearing a thing, and then you're just jumping all over it for clicks. And that's obviously what they're doing. But this, I don't know. To me, I see it. Say him, her, whatever. I see this boxer, looks like a man, seems to be failing tests that they test men for. And I don't know, just looks to me like it's probably a man. And I don't think that's fair. And the other boxers seem to be pretty hurt by it. And now it's like, now people are just, there's so much shit thrown against the wall that they're now trying to like walk things back. No, man, I think we should try and walk it back to a time where we used to be, we used to be worried about women being in women's sports and men being in men's sports. So that's just the way I feel about it. But I guess that's, that's not the most popular version. But anyways, the idea is to deprive us of the actual ability to reason. It's the first faculty that goes when they join the call. You're right. Yeah. That's completely true. It's all a mind call. It's all a mind virus, right? They say a thing, they make you walk a line, and and that's what you do. And even the people that don't say anything are just kind of complicit. They just walk along with it and just don't really say anything. I don't blame them necessarily, because it's not really your fight. I get it, but at the same time, at some point you got to kind of say, all right, when has it gone a little far? Are we going to actually say something about this? And I think this is just personally for me. I think when you start to put women in danger in sport and their safety and things like that, that's when I feel like my hackles get up and I really want to kind of get in the fight. Because I don't know, it's just one of the things that gets me. Right? But, other people, I guess, don't get as worked up about it as I do. But anyways, all right. Well, I'm going to move on to the next thing. I get too worked up about this shit. Speaking of like getting worked up. So UK is rioting. Jeez. And I love this is what they call them, the far right riots. I don't know. Well, I'm going to read this article and then we're going to kind of dissect this and we'll see what you think about this. This is Al Jazeera. I like to kind of pick, when I'm doing the articles, I like to kind of pick a wide sort of variety of different takes, different parts of the world, stuff like that, on things like this. So Al Jazeera comes up from time to time. I'm not sure what I think about them. Sometimes they're pretty on, sometimes they're a little off. So we'll see. So UK riots, why are far right groups attacking immigrants and Muslims? At least they can all get that straight, that they're all like lock stock, with the fact that they're all far right groups, they call it. But anyways, as riots continue to rage in the UK, hotels housing asylum seekers have been torched by far right agitators. The Holiday Inn Express Hotel in Tamworth in North England was set alight. Rioters also gathered near the Holiday Inn Express Hotel used to house asylum seekers in Rotherham. Both incidents took place on Sunday. So if you know what's going on like that, it's the same thing's going on in Canada and the United States. Just don't hear about it as much in the United States anymore. But with, with immigrants and asylum seekers and such, they're housing them in hotels. So they're doing that in Canada. I don't quote me on the number on this, but I read this the other day. I think it's to the tune of about $900,000 a day for these immigrants coming in, and they're putting them in these hotels. I think it's average of about $250 a night or something. This is taxpayer dollars. This is going to piss some people off, obviously, right? So when they say far right agitators and such, I think it's not just them. They're just the ones that are maybe, the ones that are out there doing all the activism, if you will. But other people are pretty upset about this kind of stuff, myself included. But anyways, this is the best way to get the most clicks on your story, I guess. But here we go. Let's read some more. Protests led by far right groups, I love it, they just keep putting in there, right? Have escalated into clashes with police in multiple towns as a wave of unrest fueled by xenophobia and misinformation surrounding the tragic killing of 3 young girls in a stabbing incident sweeps across the country. About 400 people have been arrested. So I don't know if you know about this. There was was it a Taylor Swift concert or something like that? I can't remember. Was that a concert or something where these 3 young girls were stabbed by what they thought was an immigrant, but apparently this immigrant was born in the UK. So he's not actually an immigrant. So that's what they're talking about, the misinformation. Again, what do you believe? I don't know. So that's what I read. So that's what I'm just going to go with for now until I vet more information and find out something different. I guarantee you will regret taking part in this disorder, either directly or those whipping up this disorder online, Prime Minister Keir Starmer said in a televised address on Sunday. He has cast the riots as organized illegal thuggery by a minority of Britons. In the grips of a 6th day of violence, Downing Street held a cabinet office briefing room emergency meeting. Here's what you should know. What led to this moment? Last week, it was a Taylor Swift themed dance. During a Taylor Swift themed dance and yoga workshop at a community center in Southport, England. So I was kind of on but off. 3 young girls were stabbed to death by 17-year-old suspect Axel Rudakabana. He was born in Cardiff, the Welsh capital, reportedly to Christian Rwandan parents. False information on social media claimed the suspect was a Muslim immigrant. Those rioting are vocal about their hatred of immigrants, but there is also a sense of underlying xenophobia against minority communities in the UK, especially Muslims, said analysts. Rosa Friedman, a professor at the University of Reading, told Al Jazeera that the riots were a result of the former conservative government's complicity with such racist far-right groups. This is the division they stoke. Fuck you. I love these idiots that do that. Oh, okay, that's what it was. It's not just people who are getting tired of certain shit that keeps going on, and then they just find nobody's doing anything about it, so they get militaristic and they start doing some shit. I'm not condoning the actions of that. I'm not a rioter or one to get up at arms, but I can understand the sentiment of being irritated by the fact that immigration is gone rampant in these countries I mentioned, Canada, UK, US. So it pisses people off. It turns them a bit radical, right? So, but they act like it's the government's complicity. Like, shut up. Instead of hiding their faces, they have now been coming out. We cannot blame a Labour Party that has only been in government for the past 4 weeks. Meanwhile, agitators like Tommy Robinson are stoking tensions. Born Stephen Christopher Yaxley Lennon, the far-right activist and co-founder of the English Defence League, has been busy posting inflammatory video rants to his 800,000 followers on X, decrying Muslims, migrants, and the political establishment and police. He's posting from afar, reportedly in Cyprus. A High Court judge issued an arrest warrant for Robinson after he failed to appear at the Royal Courts of Justice on Monday for a hearing in contempt of libel court case he lost against Syrian refugee Jamal Hijazi. I don't know anything about this dude, but okay. So the riots are all over the place, whatever. What was the government said? So Prime Minister Starmer said he utterly condemns far-right thuggery. Okay. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, why did I have a hard time reading that name for a second, stated in a recent interview with Sky News, there will be people who were thinking they were going on their summer holidays this week, and instead they will face a knock on the door from the police. Nigel Farage, the anti-immigration leader of the populist movement Reform UK, who is now a sitting MP, has stoked tensions. In May, he suggested Muslims do not share British values. What you've seen on the streets of Hartlepool, London, or Southport is nothing compared to what could happen over the course of the next few weeks. He also justified the riots. The far right are a reaction to fear, to discomfort, to unease that is out there shared by tens of millions of people, he said. Kind of like what I just said. So, there is there's a common sense to that. You can understand that people rise up when they're pissed off about things. So if you see something that is, that's going wrong, like immigration policies, and it's starting to get civil unrest, naturally what you should do is try and do something about that, but that's not how the government works anymore. What's next? Police and officials are telling the public that perpetrators of violence and abuse will be punished. Oh, okay. Thanks, Tips. Meanwhile, ethnic minority and migrant communities are becoming more fearful. In a recent news conference, South Yorkshire's Police Assistant Chief Constable Lindsay Butterfield stated, "If you were there, we will find you and you will be held accountable for yesterday's violence." Okay, anyways, that's a little more nonsense at the end. That article was kind of fluffy and stupid, but yeah, I mean, the rhetoric is there. They're just going to keep saying far-right activists, which, fine, whatever you want to say, whatever you want to keep saying. If you read any article about it, it's all saying that. They just deflect from what the actual problem is people are just getting pretty upset about immigration policies, and they need to kind of change. But whatever. I don't see these UK riots kind of going anywhere in the next little bit. I think you're going to see it, the unrest for the next couple of weeks, and then it'll kind of be like what happened in the States in May and June of 2020. It'll be the same thing, like a month, 2 months of bullshit, and then it'll kind of quell, I think. What do you got to say here? Yeah, I agree. Mostly ordinary folks just had enough cultural enrichment. Yep. You will find any way you can to bring... Awesome, buddy. Oh, I wish I saw that while I was reading. Yeah, I know. I guess maybe I'm a secret Swiftie. I don't know. Fucking hate that chick, but whatever. I've brought her up a few times on this stupid podcast when it comes up. I don't know, but London's like 30 some odd % native English. They're the minority. Yeah. Well, that's what's happening, right? It's like, so I went to Paris a bunch of years back, 2018, maybe something like that, or 17 or 18. And yeah, it's odd. It's quite odd, the population, the density of population. Like, I expected something different, and I'm not, okay, whatever. I don't care if this sounds racist. I don't mean to be racist or not, but I expected more white French speaking people everywhere. But what I saw was wow, it was a crazy mix of, diversity going on there. It was like, just not what I expected, and it's the same in any major city Go to Toronto, it's the same thing here in Canada. I'm sure London's the same. I've never been, but what are you saying that? What has she done now? Who? What? Taylor Swift? I don't think so anything, but I was talking about her a little bit. I've talked about her, and Joe likes to make jokes about me being a Swiftie. It was I can't remember the first thing I talked about her, but there was that whole thing with Kelsey. So I was talking about her a little bit there, and I don't know. So she comes up sometimes, but I read something about it being something to do with Taylor Swift, so I thought it was a Taylor Swift concert. I think I skimmed and I read it. I read like 3 or 4 articles on this shit. They were all kind of the same bullshit, but yeah. I mean, it's not even like Africa, but also there's a lot of Muslims. There's a lot of brown people in Paris. I mean, where I live, in the area I live, it's just like I wouldn't even know what the demographic is at this point. I would wager a guess that I would say that I'm in the minority at this point now, which I honestly don't really give a shit either way. For me, it's more about like culture. Like if you live in a part of the world and you have sort of a culture that you're used to, that that you like, that you've grown up with, and then you have this mass immigration, and then they just start to try and very quickly change the culture. They start bringing their own culture to your country, and you're like, well, like, why did you leave your country if you're just bringing your culture over here? Like, I would think you left your culture, your country, to come to another country that has its own culture. Like, I wouldn't bring my culture to Japan or China or or any other country that has a strong culture. I would just try and adopt their culture. That's just the way I look at it. Or I just stay in my damn country and enjoy my culture here and go and visit those countries and experience their culture and then come back home to my own. But anyways, I don't know. It just seems logical to me. All right, let me get on to the next thing here. I don't want to go too long. This one's going to take a while. The last one I talk about is going to take no time because I don't really care that much. I just thought it was interesting. And plus, I don't want to get shadow banned. All right, here we go. Yeah, so you obviously have to know by now. If you're conservative or if you... Actually, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you are. You've probably heard of Project 2025 because the left are talking about it as this, this right-wing manifesto, if you will, and I don't know what the right are really saying about it, but anybody in the know knows it's a bunch of bullshit. Let me read this article here. This is who is this? This is Cleveland.com. Let's give the smaller guys some due. This is just a little opinion piece, but it talks a little bit about the rhetoric and the hysteria, as they're putting it, around Project 2025, and I thought it was a pretty decent article. So here we go. The Kamala mania of the last 2 weeks has temporarily distracted Democrats' attention from something they were ramping up to try to scare the bejabbers out of the non-MAGA populace, but that doesn't mean they won't get back to it as soon as they come down from their post-Biden high. The subject is Project 2025. Perhaps you've heard of it, but if not, here's a short summary. Project 2025 is a proposal. Okay? Here we go. Created by more than 400 scholars and analysts for the Heritage Foundation, a conservative think tank outlining the policies, principles, and transition strategy they hope to convince a conservative president to embrace after taking office. At the moment, that is Donald Trump. But this project has become, or has become as soon. Well, this project was begun. I'm retarded. My bad here. But this project was begun as soon as Trump left the White House in 2021, long before anyone knew the identity of the 2024 Republican presidential candidate. In fact, Heritage put together a similar but far shorter document in 2015, before Trump was even elected. It is 922 pages long. Much of it is standard, predictable conservative fare, a wish list and nothing more. It proposes ways for a conservative president to exert some control over the vast bureaucratic army of the administrative state he oversees in the executive branch, so that Americans are not ruled by a faceless, unelected bureaucracy that opposes conservative ideas every step of the way. That, in other words, would be the deep state. But they always like to say that they're against conservative ideas. Not necessarily. Whatever keeps them, quietly in power. It suggests ways to replace people who, in the author's opinion, might work to thwart the policies that a conservative president was elected to enact, and proposes putting together a database of replacements who are more in line with a conservative president's priorities. It further suggests things like lowering the corporate tax rate, tying more welfare programs to work, deregulating health insurance markets, expanding Medicare Advantage plans, increasing U.S. energy production, and more funding for a wall along the southern border. All long-standing conservative positions. And from my point of view, seemingly common sense, but okay. It also includes proposals that are anathema to the left. I don't know what that word means, but okay. I guess against the left. A national ban on abortion, abetted by a system of tracking and prosecuting providers, scaling back federal restrictions of charter schools, rescinding a rule creating a non-binary gender category for students, canceling student loan programs, mass deportations of immigrants here illegally, disbanding the Department of Education. So these are other things that are a little bit outliers, but if you're more conservative, you're kind of for these things. Obviously, some of them I'm for, some of them I'm a little bit mixed on, but it's important to reemphasize at this point a word that is run through all of the above. This is a proposal, exactly, a proposal. It's not a manifesto or anything like that, by a group of conservatives, a wish list, an aspirational plan. It is not included in the Republican Party platform. In some cases, it runs counter to it. But from the reaction of the Democratic left, you would think it is a Mein Kampf and the Communist Manifesto all rolled into one. It is terrifying and chilling and lots more. And they speak of it as though it will be all be put into place the moment Trump takes office. All this despite the fact that some of it is unconstitutional and that Trump denies having anything to do with it. I know nothing about Project 2025. I have no idea who is behind it, he wrote on Truth Social. And if you watch Tim Pool, his podcast or anything, he actually talked to the guys, some of the creators of it, and they say it had nothing to do with Trump. They just made this thing and whatever, right? Like they would hope that Trump would go along with some of it and such, or at least some of it, if not all of it, but he had nothing really to do with it. But of course, that's irrelevant. They're going to tie Trump to it, and they're going to tie it as some kind of weird manifesto. That's just the way you scare people. Well, you can believe it or not, it strains credulity to think that he knows nothing about it. Those are two words now that I'm not really aware of. Credulity. Given that the head of the project, Paul Dans, and many other contributors worked in the Trump administration. But Trump added that I disagree with some of the things they're saying, and some of the things they're saying are absolutely ridiculous and abysmal. That might include the abortion piece. According to the Wall Street Journal, Project 2025 mentions abortion nearly 200 times, but unlike over the past 40 years, the subject gets nary a mention in the official party platform. In the wake of the Supreme Court Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade and votes in several states, including Ohio, affirming abortion rights, Trump's official position is now to leave decisions to the states and oppose a federal ban, which is a good place to be. This goes on for quite a while. So here we go. I'll just read this part here. It says, liberals should think about Project 2025 the same way conservatives think about a more leftist policy proposal like the Green New Deal. It's an aspirational policy framework led by the most ardent ideologues on one side of the aisle, and it's one that contains a mix of good ideas, bad ideas, and unrealistic proposals that won't ever see the light of day. And if you are on the other side of the aisle from the drafters of these proposals, I think it's totally fair to focus on those bad ideas and be concerned about them. But my advice is not to fall for the hysteria. I'm guessing the politicians and columnists stirring the pot already know that and are simply using it to club the other side. Don't let them distract you from the far more important issues of the campaign. So, very smart sum up at the end there. It's obvious that's what they're doing. They're just going to take this thing and they're going to go, oh, this is a manifesto from Trump. More reasons to scare you into thinking Trump's going to be some weird dictator, which he never showed himself to be in the first 4 years of presidency. He's just an ardent populist and supporter of America, and I think that's what you kind of would want in a president. But I guess not. Yeah, I'm completely. I get shadow banned all the time. Like you can see it. I can see it so evidently at times. It's like I'll see my videos and they're doing really well, and I'll look at my analytics, and I'm getting, like 500,000 views in whatever it says, like 48 hours or something like that. So all my videos are doing really well, and there's a lot of push. I'm getting a lot of what do you call it? What's the word I'm looking for? When they're putting it out there, I forget the word that they use, but they're putting it in front of more eyes. And then I'll talk about something that they don't like, and bang, I get no more. Like it just falls off a cliff. So I'm very sure I'm being shadow banned. And, I'm not, whatever. This podcast is not the most well produced thing. So it's not like I have such an ego about it that I'm like, oh, I do all this production to make this thing very high value. But, it's just let it do what it's going to do. You don't have to shadow ban this. They're just not going to let anything small like this catch fire, which, whatever, it's par for the course, I suppose. Yeah, you can definitely see they totally choke the viewership on certain videos. But I got one video of Matt Rife, comedian, that I think has got like 7,500 views now, and it just keeps getting views all the time because it's a fluffy thing, and they can push that no problem, right? They're not worried about that. But the other stuff, obviously, they're not going to push. But wait till they see what I'm going to talk about next. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you sticking around for me. You guys keep me doing this thing. Like every time I think to quit, I got a few of you that come out and you're part of it. And trust me, I'll tell you this right now. If this ever takes off, I'm not going to forget my original group of you that come and you jump in the comments with me. You make this thing actually fun for me to do. Otherwise, it feels like another job. So I do appreciate it. So thank you. Let me talk about this last thing real quick because I want to hit the hour mark. I don't want to go over because I know Tim Pool goes soon. So let me quickly get on this one here. I shouldn't even talk about it, but I'm still going to do it. So I don't know if you heard about this, but Google lost a pretty big antitrust lawsuit. This is kind of funny. It's funny that I'm talking about it on this platform, but I wanted to talk about that. That was kind of funny. But we'll see how it goes. This is CNN Business, so I'm actually surprised that they're talking about this, but who knows? Who knows why? So here's the title of the article. Google loses massive antitrust lawsuit over its search dominance. Google has violated U.S. antitrust law with its search business. Federal judge ruled Monday, handing the tech giant a staggering court defeat with the potential to reshape how millions of Americans get information online and upend decades of dominance. After having carefully considered and weighed the witness testimony and evidence, the court reaches the following conclusion. Google is a monopolist, and it has acted as one to maintain its monopoly, U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta wrote in Monday's opinion. It has violated Section 2 of the Sherman Act. The decision by the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia is a stunning rebuke of Google's oldest and most important business. The company has spent tens of billions of dollars on exclusive contracts to secure a dominant position as the world's default search provider on smartphones and web browsers. Those contracts have given it the scale to block out would-be rivals such as Microsoft's Bing and DuckDuckGo. The U.S. government alleged in a historic antitrust lawsuit filed during the Trump administration. I almost said plump administration. He is a little plump. I'm not going to keep reading this, but actually, here we go. Possible penalties. I'll read this real quick and then kind of get past this here. Meta's decision is expected to trigger a separate proceeding to determine what penalties Google will face, after which point the company is also likely to file an appeal, meaning it may take months or even years for any potential consequences to play out. But the ruling could ultimately upend how Google makes its search engine available to users by impacting its ability to make the pricey deals with device makers and online service providers that were at the heart of the case. Other remedies could be on the table too. For example, the court could force Google to implement a choice screen, letting users know about other available search engines, Vanderbilt University law professor Rebecca Allensworth told CNN. So, yeah, and some monetary fines, things like that. So this is good. I mean, this is good for search, for being able to look up other things. I think this is a good thing. I mean, not so good maybe for Google. I don't know. But I'm sure they're going to spin it in a way that works for them. It's funny. I'm talking about it on their own platform. But, yeah, this is I feel like this is a win for the little guys. All right. Don't let him fool you. He'll push me off the cliff the first chance he gets. I'm going to drive all the way to where you are, bud. It's not that far. I'm going to drive where you are. I'm going to push you off whatever cliff. Yeah. So that's it, man. That's all I got today. We're at the hour. Ooh, man. I think I talked long on a couple. So thanks for sticking with me, guys. If you are watching or you did watch and you aren't a subscriber, again, subscribe to the channel. There's lots of benefits to it. We won't talk about those benefits. Lots of perks, monetary perks. There's all kinds of perks. No. And if you like the content, hit the like, share, all that kind of stuff. If you've missed any part of this podcast and you don't want to watch the whole thing again, you can check out the small segments. I post them at 5 o'clock Eastern Standard Time between Tuesdays and Sundays, depending on what they are. Yeah, so, check them out then. Like them and that. Where's JP? JP. Where's JP? Who's JP? Oh, Joe? This thing gets a life of its own. Ta-ta, man. Ta-ta, everybody in the comments. Thanks, Joe. And thank you, man, for being in the comments with me. And for everybody else, thanks for watching. If look for me next week. If I'm not going to be doing it, I'll let you know. It's the summer, so it's kind of whatever. But otherwise, catch me next Monday at 7 o'clock. And yeah, and until then, we'll see you on the next one.